The storming of the US Capitol by supporters of President Donald Trump has prompted calls by some lawmakers to remove him from office before President-elect Joe Biden is sworn in on January 20. There are two ways to remove a president from office: the 25th Amendment of the US Constitution and impeachment, followed by a Senate conviction. In either scenario, Vice President Mike Pence would take over until Joe Biden's inauguration. For more, I'm now joined by Associate Professor Markus Wagner from the University of Wollongong. Your specialty is in constitutional law. It is terrific that you could join us this afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome. I hope that I hope that our audio link is working. Now, my first question to you is, I want to go through both these options individually, but there is only 15 days until Joe Biden takes over from Donald Trump. Is either possible in that window, in that time frame?
So technically, yes. And let's maybe take the 25th Amendment route first. The process would have to be initiated by the Vice President and the Cabinet. And the majority of the Cabinet, which has 14 members, which includes the Vice President, would have to essentially sign a letter and declare the President to be unfit to carry out the powers and duties of the office. That's the first step. And once the Vice President signs and transmits that letter to Congress, he de facto becomes the acting president. It would be likely, I think, that Trump would then send another letter saying, no, I'm not unfit, and disputing the claim that the vice president has made. And then the vice president, who's the acting president at the time, would have 4 days to transmit yet another letter stating that the president continues to be unfit in his opinion. During that entire time, the vice president retains the position of acting president, and then Congress has to meet within 48 hours and then has 21 days to decide the issue. And if you then think about, we have 14 or 15 days, depending on how you count at this point, that would run out the clock, essentially. And if Congress does nothing, then Mike Pence remains the acting vice president until the term of the current president runs out. So Congress wouldn't necessarily have to act in that particular instance, and Trump would therefore be removed for the remainder of the presidency.
Okay, so if anyone was actually considering this as a potential strategy right now, they're really up against the clock. But nevertheless, I'd like you to just explain to me what you mean by unfit. What can unfit mean in this circumstance, and who decides?
Unfit is not a term that's anywhere really defined, and I'll just invoke the words of the senator who sponsored the 25th Amendment in 1967, or when it was ratified ultimately in 1967. He wrote that particular section of the 25th Amendment was designed to be used if the president was nutty as a fruitcake. You make up your own mind whether that's the case at the moment, but unfit basically means, at least to my mind, that whoever holds the presidency is not in a position to make rational decisions any longer. And that is obviously a subjective call to make, and that would be the vice president's and a majority of the cabinet's call to make. There's a problem, of course, because most of the people who some people call the adults in the room have left the cabinet. And you only have the hardcore believers in President Trump still in office. A number of people are thinking of leaving their cabinet posts at the moment. So it's very unclear, and it's a very fluid situation, obviously.
So let's talk then about the other option, which is a Senate conviction after impeachment proceedings have taken place. Now, Donald Trump has been impeached once already, and I remember that whole process taking quite some time. How quickly could it happen?
So I think your own recollection jives with everyone else's. I don't find that to be particularly convincing, even in the current circumstances, where we seem to see that there's some semblance of rationality coming in, even in the diehard supporters or former diehard supporters of President Trump. My own take is that process just takes too long to be effectual within the next 14 days or so. If anything, I would place my money, if I were a betting man, on the 25th Amendment route. That has the added benefit, and this is maybe something that one wants to think about. That if Vice President Pence thinks of his own political future, he could ultimately sort of become the uber statesman, right? And say, this is now the time when I have to step up, despite the fact that he hasn't done so in the last 4 years and has been very loyal to President Trump. But that could potentially make him a shining figure in this whole saga that we're seeing playing out at the moment.
When you say shining figure, you certainly don't mean to Donald Trump, though. We have spoken to a number of people today who have now said that Mike Pence has effectively crossed Donald Trump. He has not been able and will not be able to deliver Donald Trump the election win he was hoping might eventuate from this joint session of Congress currently underway in Washington. Do you foresee any other difficulties with the situation that America now finds itself in, that there is a president in the White House, as John Barron from Planet America said, he has his hands on the nuclear codes, but he seems to be losing support, losing trust. We don't exactly know what he's thinking at the moment because he's been silenced by social media. Is this a dangerous moment that could see some other legislation enacted in any way to protect the American people?
It's really hard to say. I mean, the last 24 hours are literally, and I don't use that term very often, they are unprecedented, right? We haven't seen a storming of the Capitol. We haven't seen a president in front of the White House essentially telling people to march onto the Capitol. Could we see things? I think we're seeing the beginnings of it. If you think about Mitch McConnell, for example, the Senate Majority Leader, I think whatever you may think of him or his politics, I think he has stepped up to the plate, as you would say in the U.S., and has really sort of put his marker down now in the process of the joint session of Congress that we're seeing playing out. I think you see other politicians crossing those lines, if you will. Mike Pence may be one of them. He could be playing a crucial role, and it's really hard to say. I don't see any legislation working here, and I say this as a law professor. I don't necessarily think that law is the guiding function at the moment. I really see that the political norms are pulling these actors into a place of saneness, if you will, right, or sanity, much more than they have done in the last 4 years.
Really extraordinary to hear you say that. A specialist in US constitutional law, Associate Professor Markus Wagner from the University of Wollongong. Thank you.
Thank you.